So, where is the market at the moment? The reality is that confidence has come back up. Oh, technical difficulties already? Here we go. I love a man putting his hand in my pocket. My wife isn't here, she's next door, so she didn't hear that, that's okay. How are we going? We all good? We're all good? Now, property runs in cycles, and I'm going to cover property cycles as we go through the night. But the general reaction in the market throughout Australia is since the election, Liberals got in, and I'm not a Liberal Labor advocate, that's not what tonight is about. But because Liberal has got in, the confidence in the market has gone, great, we know what the playing field is. Leading up to the election, it was all this debate about negative gearing, property prices, cash flows, all these sorts of things. So what's happened in that property market for the last 6 months is everybody's been holding off, and probably like you guys in the room, what's going to happen to my home values? You know, should I buy, should I sell, should I invest? What I've learned over these decades is that the property cycles and the markets themselves are ultimately directed by people's general what's going on, what's happening. So if people are out there reading, you know, auctions, clearance rates, people are buying, people go, oh, this is exciting, people are happening, people are buying, I better get out there, confidence starts building. Then the next press release comes out and it's going, oh, more people turned up this week, oh, self-fulfilling prophecy. When we start hearing things in the market, all clearance rates are stopping, people are stopping to buy, lending's getting tough, and if anybody's talked to a broker or a bank in the last 6 months, you'll know how tough it's been to get finance out there. So what's happened now that Liberal has got in, the policies aren't changing, it's business as usual. So right across Australia at the moment, everybody's out there going, oh, let's go. You know, I think in the first weekend after the election, clearance rates went up like 25 to 30% across the market. So everybody's out there in the marketplace. Investors certainly had been holding off for a long time because one of the big things that investors think about when they're buying property, and the first thing they generally assess is cash flow. So when they were talking about taking negative gearing away, everyone was holding off because they just weren't sure how they could cash flow the property. One of the biggest misconceptions out there when it comes to negative gearing in property is that they think that negative gearing is actually negative cash flow. And that's not the case most of the times. So we are going to cover that, and I'm going to show you some simple calculations and software how that works. But overall, the big thing is that across the market now, everybody's out there. The investors have got confidence. The first home buyers have got confidence. The lending market has got confidence. With the first home incentives, which I'm going to cover in a sec, all of the first home buyers are out there going, great, I want to get into the market now. What's happening? There was 110,000 of them last year, and with the new incentive programs, that's expected to double in the next sort of 6 months. So overall, the property market is definitely on the move, and we'll cover the different cycles in different states a bit later, but generally the perception is it's off and running, so that's a good thing. Now, the lending market. One of the biggest things when we go out there and look at lending is the affordability. How do we get a loan? How does it work? And I'm going to cover how banks work shortly, but the real important thing is that APRA, which is sort of the governing body out there that they've reduced the assessment rate. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you've got a mortgage out there, or for the people that do, you know, you've got a 3% or 4% or a 5% interest rate. What's been going on behind the scenes for the last few years is that if you're going in and saying, look, I want to borrow a home or get a $500,000 mortgage, and the lending rate might be, I don't know, 4% or 4.5%, what the banks are doing is that they're assessing you at 7 or 8 or 9% behind the scenes. So yes, you might be able to afford a mortgage at sort of 4 or 5 or even 6%, but they're assessing you so far above what you're actually paying, so it's killed a lot of deals. So if anybody's tried to get funding over the last year or two, it's been really, really tough. So just recently, APRA has adjusted that now, where fundamentally the assessment rate is so much lower. And I'll tell you how banks work. Now, what happens with banks? They are in the business of lending. that's what they're all about. So for the last 6 to 12 months, the taps have been turned really off really hard. Just recently, especially since the election kicked on, the taps have now turned back on, and especially with APRA adjusting the assessment ratios, lending's now. So if we're talking about lending, getting loans, buying properties, or if you've already got loans, now's a great time to go out there and start assessing what to do. So if property is on the move and lending is great, what are the next moves? So these are very simple step-by-step processes that you should follow. First one being, how do you make your choice on your property? A home is a want, right? We often confuse home as a need, but it's not. As humans, we all need shelter. You know, in the old days, in cavemans, it was the biggest, strongest man that went out there and took the cave and got away from the dinosaurs, so it's built in there that we need a home. And we love our homes. And that's the key when we're assessing our home. It's what makes us feel good. We can all go out there and rent something and have the shelter, get away from those pesky dinosaurs trying to eat us. But what we want is to own our home. And investment is a very, very different choice, because an investing in property is purely and simply a need. Do you need more money? Right? We confuse so much when we're assessing our property choices between wants, needs, logic and emotion. So a real big part of tonight is helping you separate that head and heart philosophies to make smarter choices. So if you're going down the home path, that's all about where you live, where you love, what is important to you from the warm and fuzzies. When we start talking about investment choices, that's about how do we pay for our warm fuzzy feelings, our home, our lifestyle, our kids. So when we're making investment choices, it's really about using your head and your smarts, where your heart's about what you love, what's important to you. The next step is paying for it, right? So many people get all these steps in the wrong order. We know what we love. Step is, can we pay for it? So when it comes to our home, what we want to do is understand that you guys ultimately are the only one that pays your mortgage. No one knocks on your door at the end of the week and says, great, you've got a wonderful home, great kids, here's some money to fund that. It's us. We're the only ones. So how much can we afford for our warm and fuzzy feeling? Very, very important. Because what happens is that when we go for our home, we always want the best home, the best lifestyle. How is that going to affect other parts of your actual life? Can we still pay for the kids' schooling, the shoes, the food, the electricities? So it's a very, very important step when you're assessing, am I buying a home? Can I afford the home? Am I downsizing? Am I selling? What is my budget level for that warm, fuzzy feeling? When you're investing in property, when we talk about lending in banks, how much we can get from the banks, ultimately the question that we always ask ourselves is, can I afford to buy the investment property? Is it cash flow positive, cash flow negative? Now there's another part to this. One is the affordability. So yes, we go out and buy one. Is it cash flow positive? Is it cash flow negative? But another big part of that is you might be spending $10, $20, $30 a week on coffee or shoes or Foxtel or apps on your phone, whatever that may be. Can you divert that $5, $10 or $20 a week that you're spending on lifestyle to an investment that ultimately will really give you some lifestyle? Pay your mortgage off, you know, get rid of your debt, give your kids a good university or fund your retirement. And it's important to understand, which we'll cover a little bit later, is with investing in property, you're not the only one paying for it and cash flowing it. Other people help you there. So step one, what do you love? What do you need? Step two, how much can I get from the bank and how much can I cash flow it? And from a home, is that going to take away from my other life, my kids, my education, all those other things? But more importantly, with an investment property, will those $10, $20, $30 a week actually give me that long-term investment? So once you've got that, it's now choosing it. And it's interesting because so many people get step 2 and 3 always in the reverse order. They start looking at property investments, or they are out looking at their home, and they might have gone online to Westpac and gone, okay, or CBA, oh, the home loan's going to give me $300 or $300,000 or $400,000, but they've never actually seen a broker and found out what they could get from the bank for real, and they've done an accurate budget to know what they can cash flow. So before you actually even start to shop, you make sure that you see your broker, you get your cash flow first. And then once you know what your budget is, the home selection's very easy. What do I love? Where do I want to live? Investment in property is a logical choice. What will make me the most money for the least amount of risk and the least amount of money of my own pocket? Very, very two different things. So this is where we start separating what are we doing. Home, where do I want to live? What makes me feel good? Investments, what's going to make me the money to do it? And the next part of it is who's going to help me through the journey. So it's really important when you start talking about property people, who do you relate to, who can you do it, and the questions. Can they help me with all the steps? Can they help me buy and sell the homes? Can they help me do it not just in your local area here, but you know, there might be people in the room that are thinking of packing up and moving to Sydney. There might be people that have got properties in other locations. Can they help you with all parts of the process, wherever your properties are, whether it's owner, occupier, investment? So, 4 simple steps. What do I want? Who am I going to get it from? How much can I afford? And getting your priorities right. So very, very simple. So, let's start with getting into the market for the first time. Is there any first home buyers in the room? Yes, got a couple here? Perfect, right. So, getting into the market. How do we do it? Can you afford to do it? What's the best property to buy? Or really, the first time when we're getting into this is, what is the property that I can afford to buy, and do I actually want to live in it? We all want to have the best property in the world, but getting your toe into the market, you might say to yourself, okay, that's my budget, that's what I'm getting as a home. Yeah, that's not necessarily better than what I'm living in, I've got to downgrade. So maybe instead of your first home purchase, you go, well, maybe I invest first and then come back and get the dream home. So it's getting your strategy right. So how do we now actually get into the market? The first one is the grant. Now, when we're going for a loan, I'm going to cover this in the finance section, you need a deposit to start. So you need a bit of skin in the game. So what's happening is that if you are going to buy a property for the first time, you can go and get a grant which will help you with the deposit. It is important to appreciate that if you are going to get the first homeowner's grant, you do need to live in that property for 12 months. Okay? You can't just buy it and convert it to an investment property straight away, because the grant people come back and knock on the door and say, sorry, why aren't you living here, please? Right? So make sure that if you're going for the grant that you are going to live in it, and you're maxed out at a basically purchase price of $750,000, right? So that's not bad for a first home buyer anyway. The next one is the stamp duty concessions. So when you buy a property, we get the lucky privilege of paying an additional fee on top of that, which is your stamp duty, okay? Again, with your first home buyers, you can get a stamp duty concession, and that doesn't necessarily go into your savings that you're going to fund as well. Now, there is a new one out there that's being bandied around the election, which is the new first home buyers deposit scheme. A lot of people out there are thinking that it's actually a grant. It's not. So what happens is, if you've got your 5% deposit saved, what the government is going to do is ultimately give you a guarantor for another 15%, which avoids what's called mortgage insurance. Okay, so again, mortgage insurance is a banking term. I'll cover that in finance. So what they're suggesting is that if you saved your 5% deposit up, we're going to guarantor another 15% of equity for you to help you get a better lending deal, get into the market so much easier. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's appreciated. If you are going to go for this, there's 10,000. So it kicks off sort of January 1 next year. So that's 10,000 across Australia. considering there was 100,000 first home buyers last year, they'll all be queuing up for this one pretty quick. So if you're going to go for it, get everything ready to go, you know, in that October, November process, so that if you are ready to go, you can lodge the application quick, smart. Now, if you haven't saved your 5% deposit yet, there is what's called a super saver scheme. Now, for people that understand about how superannuation works, is that you're putting this money away forever and a day. And it's funny, actually, that's how I started my career. I used to work for MLC when I was 16 years old, talking about people saving for superannuation. And it was an interesting gig because I used to talk to people, you know, you put your $20 or $30 a week away and you couldn't get it back till you're 65, which was pretty tough. What the Super Saver Scheme means is that if you are trying to save your deposit, you can put your money into the super, get all those concessional tax rates for the superannuation contributions, and then once you've saved enough, pull it back out, okay? You can do that once. So, you know, rather than just putting in your term deposit and it's just sitting there turning away doing nothing, you can make your contributions into your super fund and then pull it out when you're ready to go. So it is a good opportunity for you if you're having difficulty saving. This is my favourite. Ask mum and dad. All right? All the mum and dads in the room will definitely want to help their kids out if they can. But that's a conversation that you can have thereafter. I think what's important here is that for the mum and dads in the room, it's important to appreciate if you do want to help your kids out, there's ways of doing it where you don't have to give them the cash. You don't have to pull money out of your bank account as a deposit. You can just use equity in the home and do parental guarantors. So when the kids, if they bought a property at say 500,000 and in a few years' time it's grown in value to 550, 600, you can actually release the equity from your home and they're off and running themselves. So for parents in the room or people that are thinking of going to their parents, you don't necessarily need the cash, you just need some equity in the property to get them going. So it's certainly a way to start. What I would touch on though for the first home buyers in the room is that one thing that I've spent my life doing is talking to people actually one-on-one, not necessarily on stage. And a scary fact which I will cover is most people, when they get to their 50s and 60s, have been in debt in their home all of their life, and they wake up going, gee whiz, I'm 55, 60, I've lived in some nice homes. Generally, your first one wasn't what you lived in. The second one was a bit of an upgrade, and it's normally the third or fourth one that you start living that you actually enjoy or love. It's important to appreciate there is another path to that. And look, I learnt that. You know, I was 16 out there slogging away. You know, I worked my butt off till I was 18. I could save my deposit for a contract. And everyone said, oh, rent money's dead money, blah, blah, blah. Go and buy your own home. And I went, yeah, I get that. And then I actually spoke to someone that did investment property and I went, oh, hang on. Maybe I should invest first and then come back later. So I did that at 18, and by the time I was 23, I walked back in and paid cash for my house. So that's a big advantage. If you are thinking of getting in and doing it, yes, your home's a warm, fuzzy feeling, and I'm not saying that don't keep renting and splurge your money on lifestyle. Maybe you put your money into an investment property first, second time round, build your wealth up, get your equity, get your growth, then come back and buy your own home. So it's an important thing to consider to, yes, we want to get into the market, and getting into the market's great, but especially as a young person, if you can get a good kick start into life and make some smart decisions, it's not a bad way to go. So just think about what is your number one priority. Is it getting ahead in life, or is it owning property, or both, because you can do both. So as a first homeowner, the idea is getting into the market. If you've got no money in the bank account at the moment, start saving. You know, that's the reality of it. You know, use your Super Saver Scheme, use the grant, use those sorts of things, go to your parents, and then start looking into the market of what you can do. And then maybe think about, should I buy my home first or should I buy an investment first, and start planning a strategy around that. Either way, there's some tools there to help you. This is probably the number one slide for a homeowner. make sure you love your home. Because when you go out there and buy your home, most of our income, 40, 50, 60, 70% of our disposable income is going to that warm, fuzzy feeling. So when you're going out there to buy your home, and don't think for any means I'm saying don't buy your home, buying your home's wonderful, right? But when you're going to go out there and buy the home, make sure that your selection criteria is the only thing that's important to you. Do you love it? Make sure that your home is something that you do love. Do some prep work first, okay? So before you're out there shopping at the home, what you want to do is a budget. So what does my car cost me? What does my food cost me? What does my telephone cost me? What is my lifestyle and what's left over? And then once you've done your accurate budget, what you can then start to do going, you know what? I've got $300 a week to put towards my home now. Okay, maybe if I cut some shoes or, you know, maybe bring some Moccona into work instead of having my lattes twice a day, you might be able to find a $400,000 home, okay? So the starting process of buying your home is how much can I afford my warm, fuzzy feeling? Get your budget right, and then go to a broker and find out what your borrowing capacity is. So once you've worked out what you can budget, what you can spend, you've now got the hard work out of the way so you can actually start to go shopping on what you love. So once you start that process, create a list. Sit at home, get a glass of wine out, cold beer, whatever it is, and go, if I'm going to go and buy something, what are my trigger points? So is it, what do I want to live in first? It might be, you know, you've always dreamed of a 4-bedroom home, or, you know, we're staying in a nice, beautiful apartment on the beach up here while we're here. You know, maybe you want the apartment living. Ultimately, what's the style of dwelling that you see yourself wanting to live in? And then there's the suburb, okay? So what is in the suburb that's going to attract you? Is it a school zone? Is it the fact that it's close to work? Is it that it's got a beach view or a lifestyle view, or you can put some, I don't know, some hens and chickens in your backyard or something? Ultimately, what you've got to do is work out what are your trigger points of what you're looking for. So when you go out and do all your open homes, and all the coastal people here are going to help you with that, they're going to go out there and walk you through the homes. Have the thing on your phone, have your checklist ready to go and go, great, this is my home, this is the suburb, and assess your priorities of what is it that you love, and doing an A and a B and a C. So the A's are a must-have. So is it the must-have, I've got to have my 4-bedroom home and I don't care if it's, I don't know, 100 k's west because that's the cheapest, or no, all I care about is that water view, in which case maybe it's a 1-bedroom apartment depending on your budget. Does that make sense? So that's the real key here, is getting the list, getting your priorities right. Is this home going to make your future self happy? So we all go through transitions in life. For the younger people in the room, you know, you're starting out, you're starting to think, yeah, okay, I want that property, it's good, it's nice. But, you know, are you thinking of getting married now, you know? And, you know, as we all start out, you know, young single people, you know, what we do, we get that little 1-bedroom apartment, you know, and for the boys in the room, we might have met a girl, and what happens then? It goes well, and then she moves into your place and says, guess what? All your clothes are now in a suitcase because I've taken your wardrobe. And then they go, okay, well, we better get 2 bedrooms now, and that starts expanding. And if things go really well and you get married and have kids, well, now we've got some more rooms, don't we? So all of a sudden we now have 3 bedrooms, we need a double lock-up garage. Now, maybe on the other string of life where you've been married and that didn't work and you're getting divorced, or you're a bit older and the kids, they're still sort of clinging to life and mum and dad's wings, but you're going, right, I get out, you know, like you're 18, 19 now, off you go. So just think about, when you're going to go and buy your home, are you going to be in there for the next 3, 5, 10, 15 years? And is that what's going to make yourself happy? Okay? So these are the sorts of steps, because with your home, you don't want to be going buying and selling every 6 or 12 or 18 months. You can do that with an investment property easy enough, but if you're home, you're going to settle in there, think about where you're going to expand, because the last thing you want to do is go, yeah, I'd love that 1-bedroom beachfront apartment, but Yeah, I know. Gee whiz, I did that only 3 years ago. I fell in love, moved in with a girl. 3 months later, we were pregnant. And a year later, I've got another baby. So the 2-bedroom apartment went out the window, and now we've got 5-bedroom house with all that sort of stuff. So take those sorts of considerations of when you're going out looking, where is my next 2, 4, 5 years going? Because when you are talking to the team at Coastal about your dream home, these are the sorts of things they're going to ask you. Remember, the team here, what they're trying to do when you start looking at those homes is making sure that your wish list is important. And where am I going to be in 2, 3, 4 years' time? So when you go and see the team, go in there and have your list ready and say, righto guys, here we are, Dan, here's my list. Great, let's go shopping. And then you can go out there and make it thing. Now, if you've done your budget, if you've done your cash flows and you're out there in the market looking to buy a home and you start going out there going, that's what I get for that. But on my wish list over here is, you know, a 4-bedroom home on the water with mansions, but I can't find one of those for $150,000. Where do you start to compromise? Okay? So this is an important part of the home buying process, is when you start writing that priority list out of the A's, B's and C's of what's important, what's going to make your heart sing, then you've got to start to ask yourself, well, if I can't get those, what am I going to pull back on? So then you can go back to the next level of homes and go, actually, I've looked at that, that's not in my budget, now I'm looking at that, those are still ticking the boxes, and then you can move forward. Because one thing with property that will kill you every time from your hip pocket is procrastination. Who are the procrastinators in the room? One? Everybody else is still thinking about it, right? Yeah, maybe I am. Right, okay. If you go in there and actually go, this is my property, I've looked at my 5 or 6, 7 agents, the properties with your agents, then you go, great, that's it. And then if you've got your money sorted out, you can go in there and make a strong, serious offer and push everybody out of the market, right? And the same goes with investment property. So many people go, I don't know what I'm doing, and they see 10, 15 different properties, and they come back a month later and go, why isn't that still there? Because it was a good one. So if you've got your priorities right, you can go in there and take action. And again, same thing. When we keep talking about homes and investment properties, all I ever want you to remember is that if you can't take action on what you love now, or what you love now is going to create such a deficit in the rest of your lifestyle, the answer is always, I need more money, which means I just need to look at property as an investment. Make sense? So if you can't do it now, I need more money. If you can do it now, wonderful. Get your list together, take action, see the team, and they'll make sure that your home purchase runs smooth, clean, efficient, and you're happy. So, are your emotions actually going to affect you? So if you're going to go out there in the marketplace, again, it's the same thing. Do your prep work. What's my budget? What's my cash flow? Is this dream home going to set me back financially for the rest of my life? Or do I stay put? Or maybe I'm downsizing. It's interesting out there how many people have sat there in their dream home and then 5, 10, 15 years later have gone, I'd love to eat, or keep the lights on, or gee whiz, I'm sick and tired of hearing, Mummy, Daddy, why can't I have any more shoes anymore? So maybe that dream home, you might want to downsize that. And again, go back and see the team at Coastal. They'll help you get out of that and get back into the new one again, okay? So make sure that your emotional choices, and I can tell you this is very, very hard to do, is listen to your heart, but also click your head back in again and going, are these really the right choices for me? In the buying and selling process, there is lots of steps that you need to follow. What I want to cover tonight, because you know this is just a good overview session for you, is get the list of what you want. Get your budget, get your cash flow, know what you're going to do, whether you're buying, selling, what's your next action, and then take action. So for a more detailed step-by-step process of buying and selling your home, The great thing about First National, we've got it all there for you. So all the guides, if you haven't got them there, you can download them, and all those actions, all those budget planners are all there for you to start going. All right? So for the homeowners in the room, first home buyers, get a grant, get some stamp duty concessions, put your money towards your self-managed super fund and pull it back out, get mum and dad's help, get your list of homes, what are your priorities, make sure it's not going to affect you the rest of your life, and then just follow the simple steps of buying your home. So, paying for the home. This is the fun bit. There's maybe 1 or 2 people in the room that can walk out and pay cash for their home. Can you raise your hands, please? Great, we're going back to this gentleman's house afterwards. Thank you, sir. For the rest of us mere mortals, we're probably going to borrow money from the banks. So how does that actually work? How do banks fund you, or how do you get a mortgage from them? Banks work on 2 very basic criteria. The first one's what's known as loan to value ratio, or LVR. The other one is what's called DSR, or debt servicing ratio. So equity deposit is basically how much skin you've got in the game, okay? So if you're going to go out and buy a $500,000 property tomorrow and you were going to put 20% down, you would need $100,000. If you were going to buy that $500,000 property and put a 10% down, you would have a 90% loan to value ratio. Does that make sense? So the banks want you to put some hurt money in generally, right? And yeah, there's still banks out there that are doing 5% deposits. They are out there. So you don't have to save your 10 or 20% deposit to do it. Now the next one is what's called loan to value ratio, but a combined loan to value ratio. If you're in the audience and you've already got a home and you're thinking of buying another property for, say, investment, we often get confused in thinking that you've got to save another deposit up to get back into the market again. That's not the case. You can use the equity from your property that you have already, and what they then work on what's called a combined loan to value ratio. All right? So if you've got a property at $600,000 and you owe $450 to the bank at the moment, your current loan to value ratio would be 75%. If you've gone out and bought a property and put no deposit in, borrowed all of it, and even borrowed your costs, so in this example I just did $20,000 for some stamp duties and legal fees, your total debt would be $520. So now you've got a combined loan to value ratio of 87%. Make sense? So they look at you, if you've got no property, how much up front are you putting in? If you've already got property, what's the total equity across all of the properties? All right? The next one is debt servicing ratio. Can you repay the money back if the bank gives it to you? It's quite simple, right? So what the bank is going to do is they're going to ask you, what's your income? So your income's obviously your job or your business and the money that's coming out of that. Other income could be you might have a share portfolio ticking away. You might even have someone renting the room out. So what's the money coming in? The next one is what's the money going out? So do you have a current mortgage? Do you have any car loans? Do you have any credit cards? It's actually really interesting. Over the last 6 months, the banks have changed what they were doing. Before, you would just tell the bank, you know, I've got, you know, $100,000 income and I've got a car loan and a credit card. Now they're looking at what are you spending on Netflix? How many times have you had Uber Eats? Just be aware of that, guys. So if anybody is thinking doing a mortgage application in the next 3 months, don't order any Uber Eats, cancel your Netflix subscription, do those sorts of things. So that's what they're going to look at, right? The other thing that they will also look at if you are looking at purchasing an investment property is the rental income from the investment property as well. So it's not a simple scenario here or complicated to understand. If you're making $100,000 and you're spending $101,000, you're probably not going to get any more money, right? So it's how much is going out and how much is coming in. Now, this ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, is the most important part of the finance. Shop the banks. So many people just walk into a bank that they've been with for the last 5, 10, 15 years and say, hey, Mr. Bank Manager, how much will you give me? There's 40 lenders in Australia out there, okay? And what we often do is we just take the word of one lender, or you might get on one of those online calculators that said what you may be able to borrow. That's not what you need to do, because all of the different lenders work on different lending requirements. And it's important to appreciate, and this is where you don't take it personally. Gone are the days where you walk into your local bank manager and say, hi Bill, you know, we played golf on Sunday, can I have that home loan this afternoon please? Yeah, sure, writes it out. The bank managers themselves are basically process servers for collecting information, and then it moves up to credit. So what you need to understand with banks is that the people in credit are making more decisions than just you. So let's say, sir, you said, I want to go and buy my home, but you know, I'm a 27-year-old chippy or a carpenter and I want to buy a home at Maroochydore. And if you walked into Westpac that day, they might go, well, I'm terribly sorry, I've lent too many people in Maroochydores that are 27-year-old chippies. So they make the lending really hard for you. But ANZ goes, I haven't given any money out to some chippies lately, and I'd really like to lend some money in Maroochydore. I'm going to give you a loan, and I'm going to give you a better loan at it. So the key is what you've got to do is shop. Now, we just punched this into our loan calculator, a client's example. Real client, real example, and what punched out of their loan criteria was that the cheapest or the lowest amount they could get was $270, but after we shopped it round for the banks, they could actually spend $560. Now, that's a difference of either buying an average home or a good one, or maybe 2 investment properties versus 1. So it's very, very important that you shop your brokers. So the big key to it is that your income is not going to change. What you're earning, what you're paying out, that's not the variable. The big variable is actually the valuations on your current properties or the properties that you're looking at buying. Same thing, we've done valuations on the same properties and they've varied $100,000 on the same property over 3 different banks on the same day. So when you're going out there to look at banks, this is the secret. Use a finance broker. Now, what a finance broker does is one of 2 things. They're either going to get you a pre-approval or a borrowing capacity, and there's a big difference between both. A pre-approval is actually where you're going to fill out a mortgage application form, lodge it to finance, and that's now on your credit scale. You've effectively got a loan. Now, the loan itself is still subject to so many things. So even though you might think you've got an approval, you don't really. It's only until you actually buy something. The other difference is what's known as a borrowing capacity. So what a finance broker does is that they're going to go there and go, okay, Bill and Mary, name, phone number, address, da-da-da-da. They're going to get all your information, and then they're going to put it in the computer, and then they're going to send it out to 30, 40 different banks at once. All done. That doesn't go on your credit score. It's not an application, but what it is giving you is a real number, and you're going to come back with lots of options. So that broker's going to come back to you and say, okay, Westpac's going to lend you 500, but ANZ's only going to lend you 400, where BOQ might lend you 600. Now, they're also going to be on different terms. So BOQ at 600 might be at 4.5%, where Westpac's at 4% and the other one's at 3.9%. So what happens now, you start getting some options of what you might go, well, look, I'm quite happy to pay a bit higher interest rate because I can actually get the home or the investment property that I really love. So the real key here is before you buy property, go and see a broker. And for anybody that's in the room at the moment that has a loan, that has a mortgage, ring your broker tomorrow morning and say, what's the better deals out there? Because there's a lot better deals out there than what there was 3 weeks ago. So if you've got a mortgage, see what you can do now. If you're thinking of getting a mortgage, don't go to one bank, go to a broker and get your borrowing capacity right across the board. Now, if you don't have a good mortgage broker, just what is a good mortgage broker? One of the most important things about good mortgage brokers is they have what's called platinum status. Now, one of the big things with platinum status is that when you lodge your application or your borrowing capacity form to your broker, he can then do all those things for you in a heartbeat. And one of the big things is valuations on your properties. So what the good brokers can do is that they can go and get valuations on your properties across all of the different lenders free of charge for you. All right? So what happens, just by dealing with a good broker with a platinum status, within 72 hours, you're going to know what every bank's going to give you and get different valuations right across the board. So that's going to give you real power when you're going to go out there and buy property. Now, the other thing is, look, it's like any industry. Some brokers would specialise in a very little local market with a very special product. Some brokers might specialise in large commercial deals, and there's other brokers that specialise in all residential properties right across the board. So, if you're going to go and talk to a broker, the first question you ask them is, do you have platinum status? Right? Can you do all these valuations for me? Can you do all types of lending? So, I don't know, some people in the room might want to do a house and land package. You know, you want to build your own home or build a property for investment. You know, can they do those sorts of loans? You may be buying properties in interstate. So, can they actually do lending from properties in different states? You may be buying property in a self-managed super fund, in which case, can they do that as well? So, make sure when you're talking to your broker, firstly, can they do borrowing capacities right across the lending? Can they work on all states? Can they work on all styles of products? And can they do in self-managed super funds as well? And that's really important. Now, if your broker itself doesn't actually have one of those, don't worry, First National does. We've even got one in the room here tonight. Stand up, Steve, say hello. So he will probably be crash tackled at the end of the night. So look, if you've got your own, wonderful, feel free to do it. What Steve will do is he's just going to help you with First National lending, whatever it may be. But if you've got your own brokers, wonderful. We just want to help you with some alternatives. So, property as an investment. Right, so this is a bit more complex. The home's easy. What do we love? What can we afford? Let's go and do it. Investment property is a bit more complex, so I'm going to cover a few different strategies on this. The first and foremost is, it is not your home. Do not apply the criteria, I want to live there, I want to retire there, that'll be great for my kids when they go to school one day. This is a money-making tool. I just simply call them widgets. Because when we start talking property investments, when we hear the property, somewhere in our brain back here, we start calling it a home. It's not a home. It's just a money-making machine. So what you've got to ask yourself is, with an investment property, do you want more money? Do you need more money? That's the only reason you're going to consider it. So we often confuse a simple question is, do I want an investment property? I think most people sort of want one. The real question is, do you need one? Okay? Now, financial freedom. It's funny over the years and where I talk and what I do, because the words financial freedom get bantied around a lot. And often in the real hype sort of seminars, you know, we talk about Porsches and cars and boats and travel and all that wonderful stuff. And, you know, even when I did the seminars in America, it was wonderful because I'd come out on stage and go, who wants to be rich? I do that in Australia and everybody goes, get off your wanker, right? And that's the real difference, is that financial freedom, yes, don't get me wrong. I love my boat, I love my motorbike, I love my travel, toys are great, but that's not what financial freedom is. Financial freedom is a very simple thing. When the money stops, how long can you maintain your quality of life? Right? Now, here's a very simple litmus test. When you get home, open up your bank account. How much money have I got? So if you've got $5,000 in your offset account or your cash serving account, great. Then do your budget. How much does it cost me to live? Right? So if it's costing you $1,000 a week to live and run your household, and you've got $5,000 in your bank account, you have 5 weeks of financial freedom. And then we start getting knocks at the door and the phone calls start ringing saying, oh, you've been having bills to pay, come and pick your kids up from school, and all of a sudden you walk out the front and your car's getting towed away. Financial freedom isn't toys, ladies and gentlemen. It's controlling the quality of your life on an ongoing basis. Now here's a little boring statistic for you. Out of 100 people, we're probably 70 or 80 people here tonight, when they reach retirement, 62 people in the room, you guys have nothing to worry about other than that there's no money. 29 people in the room, you really don't have anything to worry about your financial future anymore. 3% are still stuck at work and 1% is going to be wealthy. Who wanted to be the wealthy person? Geez, I thought everyone would have raised their hand at that point. I don't know. Oh, you raise your hand first, sir. If I was wealthy and I got a cheque each week for my investments, what do you reckon the number would be on the cheque, sir? How much per week would you be making as a wealthy person? All right. What would a wealthy person be getting in each week, do you reckon? 2,000, 5,000, 10,000? 5? Right? Everyone's perception's different. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, that one person in 100 that's wealthy is actually living on more than $800 a week. Now, I wouldn't really consider that to be wealthy at all. For 80% of the rest of Australians, you're living on $333 a week, which is not that much. Now, it's quite funny because I used to do all this long story about, you know, retirement and savings, and I put a couple of slides up now, and everybody would walk out and they would go, what was he talking about? It meant nothing. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you the tools to actually really start asking the questions yourselves, do I need to start making some financial decisions? So we've got the tool up on our website, so I'll just better put my glasses on for this bit so I can see the screen. Anybody can log on to First National Assist website, and what we've got is a bit of a toolbox here for you. All right? So we've got lots of cash flow calculators, home loan calculators. You've got all your guides here that you can download, but this is the one I want to show you here tonight because this ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, I think is the most powerful tool. So log online. The first thing that you should do in your box is what's your current income. All right? So it doesn't matter what it is. So I don't know, what's the average income in Australia these days? 80,000. So that means that you're on $1,500 a week. What's your ideal retirement income? Now, with this one, everybody's got a different opinion of what retirement income is. Some people say, I want to stay on the same. Other people go, well, I've got a lot more time on my hands, so I need more money. Others will go, I don't need as much. You know, mortgage is paid off, I can probably do a bit less. So maybe in this scenario, you're quite happy with a little bit less. Now, the next one for me is actually why I've spent my life doing what I'm doing is how can you maintain life? If you've already got your home paid off, that's great. But as you're all well aware, your home is still going to keep costing you money. You've got to put water into it, rates, and fix it, and turn the power on, and you still want to eat. So the number one criteria for everyone should be, what do I need to keep the wheels turning? So, I don't know, let's say $50,000 a year. So, are we on track, right? So here's a very simple calculator. You guys do it at home. You can do it anytime you like. Let's say I've got a home worth $500,000. Where are we? 500,000. What's my debt on it? I don't know, 250,000. Do I have any investment properties? I don't know, 50% of the people in the room might have one. So, I don't know, let's say we've got a $350,000 investment property. Maybe we owe, I don't know, $250,000 on it. Do I have any shares? I don't know, maybe I've got 20 grand's worth of shares tucked away. What have I got in super? Average out there in Australia is about 150,000. And I've probably got, I don't know, 20 grand on my credit cards. No? So what we've got here is now, what is our real financial position? Right? What are all my assets? What are all my debts? If I cancel that up today, what's left? And this is sort of what retirement or planning is all about. So based on this, if I sold my home, all my investment properties, I'd have $500,000 left. I didn't want to sell my home, but maybe I had to. So what's my potential return? Now, we've put 5% in here, but we've adjusted it. The important thing is this is a net return, right? So this is after your fees and P's and charges. So if you've got a 5% net return on your 500,000, that means that you'll be living on $25,000 a year or $480 a week for the rest of your life. Now remember, you've had to sell your home already to do this. And that's the vast majority. The biggest market in lending in Australia is what's called reverse mortgages. So people go all the way through their life, they get to retirement and they simply can't afford to keep going, so they've had to remortgage their house again. So, where are you now? The next question is, how much do I need? Okay, so if my ideal retirement income is $65,000, you would need $1.3 million in a term deposit, giving you a return to give you that $65,000 a year. Now, let's say I don't get my 5%, I only got 2.5%, so now you've actually got to have $2.6 million in a bank account making money. Does that all make sense? So now we've got a bit of a plan of attack going on. If I need 2.6 and after I sell everything and pay my debts back, I've got 500 grand left over, that means I've got to make $2.1 million. How long have I got to do it? Well, I don't know, if I'm 45 today and I want to retire at 65, that means I need to save or make $100,000 a year. That's after you paid your bills, after everything, all right? I would have sat in front of tens of thousands of people. In the old days, I used to just do this with a piece of paper and a pen. 1 in 10 people break down in tears in front of me and go, oh my God, reality set in where you're at. So it's very, very important when you're making your decisions in life, where are you standing? What do I do? All this calculator is designed to do is ask you a very, very simple question, which is, do I need more money to make a simple investment? So if we go back to our slideshow. So anybody can go and do that at any time. The calculator's there. What I want everybody to do is understand, do I need to make smart decisions or emotional ones? And once you've done that, you can start taking action. So if you are going to invest in property, it's a very, very simple step-by-step process. How do you do it and be successful? Pretty simple. Start off with making logical choices, not emotional ones. If you've got a partner or you're in a relationship and you start looking at investment properties and either of you two says, oh, I really love that one, that'd be a nice home, feel free to slap each other. Is this going to make me money? So what you've got to start doing is comparing the different strategies to not what I want, but what's the best one for me. And there's so many different strategies out there. Old, new, houses, units, developing, renovating, all these sorts of things. And ultimately, property as an investment in the long term generally works really well. What you've got to do is work out what's the best one for you. Now, the key word here is you. Because your investment strategy, sir, is probably very different from your strategy as it was from yours and what's from yours. What you've got to do is start separating the BS and the sales pitch and stop listening to all these sorts of things and answer some pretty simple questions. What's going to make me the most money? What will cost me the least? What will be the best investment overall for me? And that's the key. So how does property work? So I'm just going to deal with a few fundamentals for you. The big thing is that generally when people are going out there to buy a property the first time round for an investment, if you've got your home, you're sitting there going, man, this is bloody tough. I've already got my home, my mortgage is costing me lots, because you're the only one paying it. With an investment property, you have other people helping you service your cash flow, right? So the first one's the tenant, pretty self-explanatory. Somebody else is living in your house, there's you. But the tax man's where everybody gets a bit lost on how it works. Now, this is where the negative gearing conversation sort of comes in. If you buy an investment property, you're entitled to tax deductions. Now, there's two different types. The first one are your cash deductions, which this is the money that you've got to pull out of your pocket to fund the property. So like the rates, the actual mortgage itself, paying your property manager, all those sorts of things. Now, if you're looking at potentially a second-hand property, yes, the maintenance is deductible, but you've got to spend the money first before you get it back, okay? So the maintenance isn't a good tax deduction. The good tax deductions is what's known as depreciation. So as things get older, you get to write a percentage of them off. So there's two different types of depreciation that you can claim on. One is your actual construction cost, so the actual dwelling itself, so the building, the roof, the tiles, the physical concrete. And then you've got your fixtures and fittings, or if you've got any Kiwis in the room, your chattels, okay? So what that means is your carpets, drapes, your light fittings, and they depreciate at a different rate at a different period of time. Now, how does this potentially help your cash flow? If you honour an income at the moment, you will pay tax. When you buy an investment property in your own name, that income is going to increase your taxable income. And at the same time, those tax deductions will reduce it down, and that's going to give you a new taxable income. Now, if the income is greater than your tax deductions, you're going to end up paying more tax. If the tax deductions are greater than your income, then you're actually going to get a tax rebate. So I'll put it in mathematics for you. Let's say you're on 100 grand a year, you're paying, $20,000 or $30,000 in tax, whatever the number is. When you buy an investment property, so let's say the rent is $20,000, your taxable income has gone from 100, you're still earning 100, but you're now paying tax on 120. But if those tax deductions are $40,000, now you're only paying tax on $80,000. All right? So the difference between tax on 80 and 100, that's where you're going to get a tax rebate. Okay? Now, this is where it actually gets quite exciting. So let's say you bought your first property, you're 100,000, now you're paying tax on 80. Investment property number 2, it doesn't start back at 100, it actually starts at 80. So 80 plus the rent of 20 minus 40, now you're only paying tax on 60. Investment property number 3, now we're paying tax on 40. So after multiple properties, you can actually get to a zero taxable income. All right? So instead of all that money that's going out that we see just aimlessly throwing in the bin, now it's going to build your wealth. So this is a part of a cash flow situation. Now, if you're a salaried employee, or if anybody's got investment properties at the moment, generally you get your tax rebate at the end of the year, which potentially hurts your cash flow. Because what's happening, and let's say you get a tax rebate of $5 grand a year, and you're struggling $100 a week out of your pocket, then at the end of the year you get the money, most people generally just blow it and you struggle. So what you can actually do is that you can put an application in which is called a income tax withholding variation form, and any accountant can do it for you. Is you say, okay, Mr. Taxman, I'm actually going to get $5,200 at tax time. I want that every pay packet now. So they then send a letter to your paymaster or paymistress and said, instead of taking $200 a week tax out, only take $100 a week, and now you've got a pay rise of $100 a week, which will help you cash flow your lifestyle or your investment property. Okay? So very, very powerful thing. Now, investing's all about a return, right? We all have our own idea of what's a percentage return. So just for 10 seconds in your own mind, if you were going to pull money out of your pocket and invest, what sort of return would you be happy with? 5%, 10%, 15%? That's generally our gauge. So how powerful is property getting you where you need to be? The most important thing when we talk about return on investment is how much money do you actually pull out of your pocket and how much comes back. We so often get confused about the variables, you know, franking credits in shares or property management or rates and insurance. They're the variables. The only true test is how much does it physically cost you and what are you getting back, right? Now, with investment property, unlike any other sorts of styles of investments, most people generally lean towards residential, right? I'm not saying commercial's bad, commercial's great, but most people lean towards that residential thing. Now, when it comes to residential property, we have a few other things in our investment arsenal to help you get ahead. The first one's what's known as leverage or gearing. Now, if I was going to pull $1,000 a year out of my sort of savings and put that into a term deposit into the bank and I got 5%, I would have got the 5% on the money I've contributed. Property doesn't work like that. What happens with investment property, you're getting the growth on the value of the asset. So if you bought a property at $500,000 and you got 5% growth, well, you're getting $25,000 a year. If you bought a $500,000 asset and you got 10% growth, well, you're making $50,000 a year. So the growth is on the asset value, not what it's costing you. Now, my personal favourite is other people's money. You don't have to buy the property yourself. The bank's going to pay for it. You don't have to cash flow it by yourself because the tenant and the taxman's going to help you along the way to do that. Now, how does this work? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull up some software very quickly here just to give you an understanding, all right? So I'll just pull this one back here. All right. We can just do a few different variables here, but I just thought I'd start with some basic ones to give you an understanding. Let's say we went out there and bought an investment property anywhere for $500,000. Doesn't matter the amount, we're just starting with a figure. You're going to have some purchase costs on that, so you're going to have some stamp duty. Obviously, we're talking investment here, so not homeowners grant apply. You're going to have some conveyancing costs and a transfer and title fee. So your $500,000 property is going to cost you 20 grand in costs. Now, for this example, I'm just going to take the example of somebody that already owns their own home, that you didn't have to put any money into it. So let's put 0 into that property. So now we're actually going to borrow $520,000. So we've got another 20 grand. Now, capital growth rate, the average for Australian for capital growth has been 7% for the last 100 years. So I'm just going to use that as default and then I'm going to peg that back. I've put an inflation rate in there of 3%, and on average in Australia, the market rent for a $500,000 property is about $480 a week. Now, all I'm saying is that's an average, okay? Some places get more, some places get less. So, interest. So, what's the interest rate at the moment these days, Steve, for an investment property? 4%? 4.5%? Okay, so why don't we do it at 5%? Because I'm a worst case scenario sort of guy. I like to build a bit of extra leverage in there just in case things change. It's so funny, when I used to do this software, what was it? Was it 2000s, late 90s? I was typing 18, 19, 20% into this, and some people would remember that. So we've got an interest rate of 5%. Now we're going to pay someone to look after our property for us. So we've got a property management fees, a letting fees, some rates, and some insurance. Now, just on the insurance, with your investment property, you don't need to worry about contents so much because the tenants will take care of that, but you want to make sure that it's insured in case they burn it down. But the most important insurance is what's known as landlord protection insurance, okay? They range from sort of $260 to $350 a year. So if they trash your house, you get a free reno. If they break the lease and lose rent, you get your rent back. So landlord protection insurance is very, very important. So I'm going to factor that in. So let's build our insurance up at $1,500. Now, if we've bought a new property, we've got some maintenance there, but we don't need to worry about it. I'll come back and do a second-hand one. All right? So our rent here, we've got $25,000 or $24,461. The interest is $26,000 and our running cost is $5,000. So at the moment, we are cash flow negative $6,800 a year. So you're going to find $120 a week out of your back pocket to buy your investment property. All right? This is where the tax rebate component comes into it. So we get that depreciation there. So you get depreciation on the building, you get depreciation on your fixtures and fittings. So now we've got total tax deductions of $44,000. So you're now going to get a rebate of $7,000. So the rebate of $7,000 plus the rent means that you're actually cash flow positive $269 a year. And this is the big thing. People think that negative gearing is negative cash flow. That's not the case at all. Now, if you've actually gone to a good mortgage broker and he's got you an interest rate at, say, I don't know, 4%, you're actually cash flow positive $3,500 a year. So you've bought an investment property, put no money into it, and at the end of the year, you've got a $3,500 holiday to go on as well. And that's after tax money, okay? So now, with investment property, we start looking at some criterias. If I've bought a new house, I don't have to worry about maintenance. If I've got landlord protection insurance, I don't have to worry if they do anything wrong. Generally, the biggest fear after that is not getting a tenant. So how do you think we could actually get a tenant in there tomorrow rather than waiting a week or two? What do you think? Drop the rent. That's a good answer, sir. All right. Generally, and you know, the team again at Caroline's will probably tell you that the difference between renting a property is $10, $15, $20 a week. How far do you reckon we could kick it in the guts before we get a tenant? $450 a week? What do you think, Paul? $410? $430? I feel like I'm at a Dutch auction here. Right? Why don't we do $400 a week? Are we going to get a tenant today now? We've probably got a queue here to Maroochydore at this point. $24 a week. That's it. All right? So this is the powerful thing now, is that you don't have to worry about vacancies. Keep the rent low. Don't need to worry about tenants. Have landlord protection insurance. Now let's go back to return on investment for a moment. You put no money in, right? You borrowed the equity, you borrowed the costs, you bought your investment property. So I've put no money out of my pocket. It's costing me $24 a week or $1,200 a year. So in 10 years' time, you would have put $12,000 in. Is everybody up to speed on that? Yeah? So in 10 years' time, we've done $12,000. Now, on a 7% growth, in 10 years' time, we could sell that property for $983,000. We would have paid the bank back the $520,000, and we're left with $463,000. Now, let me explain return on investment to you. Who thought 100% return was a mad figure to think about on your money? Everybody in the room. If I'd said 100% return on the money, you would have said, Ponzi scheme, let's go. So let's do the maths. Over 10 years, you would have put $12,000 in. So 100% return on your investment would have been $12,000. So if you put $12,000 in and got $463,000 back, is that a little bit more than 100% on your money? Yeah, a lot. All right? Oh, property doesn't go up at 7%. Okay, fair enough. let's say property goes up just at the same rate as inflation does, 3%. $12,000, that hasn't changed. Would you spend $12,000 to make $152,000? Yeah, not a bad deal. All right? So even if I cut it further and drop your 3% capital growth down to 1.5%, so your property's performing less than the rate of inflation, would you spend $12,000 to make 75 grand? Yeah, that's the key, ladies and gentlemen. So really, when you're looking at these cash flow scenarios, forget the terminology, negative gearing, positive gearing. It's, is this money costing me anything, or am I positive at the end of the year? And if it's costing me $10 or $20 a week, what am I going to get at the end of it? And that's the power of property. So it's really, really important to appreciate. The number one lesson, though, in this cash flow is this. Would you all be happy at $152,000 if you spent 12? Yeah? Would you be much happier with the original figure of, what did we say, 7% growth? All right. Would you be much happier at 463,000? Sorry, I'll put my glasses back on. I only got glasses recently, so I haven't done this for a while. All right, so a capital growth, oh, there we go. That was the inflation rate. See, I should have put my glasses on. My wife keeps telling me that all the time, but vanity. There we go, 3%. 463,000. The biggest lesson here is capital growth. Everybody, when they're out searching for investment properties, they're comparing property generally on, oh, that one's renting at $5.10 a week, that one's renting at $5.15 a week, I'll get the one that's renting at $5.15 a week. Irrelevant. $5 a week is not going to change your life, but finding a property that's growing at 7% versus 2.5% will change your life. So very, very important when it comes to that. So ultimately, there's so many variables here, but I just wanted to get that idea out there for you, ladies and gentlemen, of what we're looking for, which is a good cash flow property and capital growth. So that now leads us to the next question, which is, what's going to give us capital growth? How do we make our property go up? This is easy. This is so simple. Everybody says you can't crystal ball real estate. You can. It's a piece of cake. The first one is choosing what sort of dwelling do you want, right? So, should you have a house, a unit, or a high-rise? Remember, I'm not asking you what you want to live in, but generally, what is the product that goes up the most? Any thoughts? Land? Land goes up, doesn't it? What's the thing that depreciates? The building, all right? But more importantly, what you should be focusing on is who are you going to sell to? Everybody gets confused of you make all the money buying it. No, you only make the money when you sell it. So what you've got to be focusing on is who do I want to sell to in 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 10 years down the track? Who is going to pay more for a property? Another investor or an owner-occupier? An owner-occupier, because they get emotionally attached, don't we? So pick a dwelling that the vast majority of owner-occupiers want, which is generally 3 or 4 bedroom style products, because we've generally, as an owner-occupier, need 3 or 4 bedrooms for our kids. I'm not saying that apartments are a bad investment, and the right apartments are good investments, but ultimately the vast majority of owner-occupiers, it's not the apartment house thing that they're looking for, it's the rooms, it's the dwellings. Does that make sense? They need people to house and put the kids in and put 2 cars in the garage. So when you're focusing on what to buy, always focus on who am I going to sell to. And then we've got to start thinking about the location. Where do we buy it? Should it be next to us or down the road or interstate? So a quick question. Is it better to look at one location or 2 and compare them? Oh, sorry, that was a question for the audience, sorry. I've got to remind that. So what do we think? Should we look at one location or 2? 3. So is it better to compare 10 or 15 locations to find out what's the better one? Exactly. With our home, it's a different story, but with a widget, we just want the best location. So again, before you do that, you create yourself a checklist. Look, my terminology, when I was 18 years old, I thought, what do I want to have investment property? I want some capital growth. I need a checklist. So let's have a capital growth checklist. Call it whatever you like. So what you want to do is start comparing positive elements that will increase the value of your property. The first and foremost that everybody looks towards is infrastructure. So, are there jobs in the area? Don't buy in a one-horse mining town or, you know, a small little place where there's no work, because if the abattoir closes or the 7-Eleven closes or the mine closes, there's no jobs. So make sure there's jobs, because people that rent your property need a job to pay the rent, and the owner-occupiers that you sell it to need a job to pay the mortgage. So then we've got schools. Does anybody that knows anybody that's moved into an area just for the school zone for their kids? Yeah, right? So school zones, the shopping centres, local stores, major department stores, public transport, trains, ferries, buses, medical facilities, recreations. Actually, hang on, I've got this wrong. Recreation pubs, that's in the wrong one. Okay. Right, so water. Water's obviously a premium. You know, people like looking at water. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button. Local environment, relationship to an airport. You want to be close to it, but not next to it, unless you're, what's his name out of Castle? Kevin Kavanagh or something. Yeah, great views of the airline, right? So, this is the checklist, right? So this is infrastructure checklist. Supply and demand. So, how much is available in that area at one time? So, you know, if there's, 50 properties, how many are up for sale? If there's 50 up for sale, there's a lot. Now, the other thing on that is zone in the future. You might have this wonderful little suburb, but the council or the government's desired to put 2,500-storey high-rises up, in which case there's probably an oversupply of apartments. If you're building out in a small country town where they've got acres and thousands of acres of land, well, there's a lot to choose from. If you're in an area with not a lot of product and not a lot of zoning and a lot of people want it because there are lots of schools and shops, our supply and demand ratio is really on track. Ratio of owner-occupiers to investors, very, very important. How many people have you got? How many people are renting in there? That's important for a few reasons. For the owner-occupiers in the room, what are we doing every Saturday and Sunday? Mowing our lawns, training our houses, fixing the gardens, spending money on the properties. Are tenants doing that to our properties? No, right? Also, the rental income is going to be affected as well, because if you've got a lot of rentals in the area, there's a lot more to choose from, so the rent goes down. So, very, very important things. One of the biggest, though, that nobody ever looks at are property cycles. This actually has to be your starting point. So, how do property cycles work? Whether we buying and selling, whether it's investing or owner-occupiers, you're always going to be affected. Now, in Australia, property cycles on average run between 8 to 12 years, okay? So from when they start to finish or go round in a loop, that's how long it normally takes. So what happens in reality is you've generally got 3 to 6 years of flat negative growth, and then you've actually got 3 to 6 years of positive growth. So the biggest examples recently, the Sydney and Melbourne market, 2012, flat as a tack. And if you spoke to anybody in Sydney and Melbourne, they would have gone, property, that's garbage, we haven't seen anything. And then from 2012 to 2017, pretty much everything in Sydney went bang overnight, right? So when you've actually got look in your growth, property doesn't average doubling every 10 years. Yes, it takes 10 years to do the effect, but the actual growth cycle generally only happens in a 3 to 5 year period. So this is the thing to understand, where to buy in the cycle. So if you're an owner-occupier and you're living in an area where the cycle's going down and you're wanting to sell it, don't leave here tonight. Go and see the boys and get it listed fast, because it's going to be worth less when you try to sell it in a month or two. But also, if you're in a rising cycle and you're looking at selling the home, You know, you could probably put a little bit extra advertising and money towards the guys to help you sell your property because you're probably going to get more money in the future. Now, when it comes to investing in property, if you buy at the top of the cycle, it doesn't matter what you've bought. You could have bought the best house in the best suburb because it's a city that's dropping. And that's what happens, is the whole area goes down. It doesn't matter how good you've got it. Where in reverse, if you've bought a property in the rising part of the cycle, even your worst, can I be politically incorrect here? Shitbox, rundown, horrible, bad property even goes up in value. Again, probably the best example was in Sydney, a place called Mount Druitt. They actually put a show on it, Struggle Street. That went from 200,000 to 580,000 in the space of 4 years. And that was considered to be the worst real estate in Australia. So, if you pick your cycles and you're buying in locations that are in a rising market, you're always making money, right? If you're looking at selling or buying a home, the cycles don't matter so much if you're translating the home. So if you're living at, I don't know, 1 First Street, Mooloolaba, and you're going to sell your property and buy in 2 First Street, Mooloolaba, and they're your homes, it doesn't make any difference. But if you're looking at selling and moving interstate, or if you're moving to different areas, it makes a big difference. But if you're looking at investing, you have to look at the cycles and just pick the area that's growing. Now, the good news about this, if you are an investor, is that we can invest anywhere because it's not our home. So you can always pick the cycle, because what's going on in Australia is that the cycles are in a different place everywhere you go. So where one's going down, another location's going up. So as long as, if you're thinking of buying, we want to be on that side of the cycle, you're laughing. Now, I know that's a bit hard to read. So anybody that wants the property cycles in Australia, again, contact us, go to the forums, download it. All these property cycles are available for you to download at any time. So if you're making smart choices, when you're looking at properties and locations, make sure that you start with a cycle and where's the locations in Australia. And that's the unit ones, right? They get updated every month on that. Now, the other good thing that we have with First National is we have access to CoreLogic, which is also RP data, and you can download all the videos and all the market assessments, not just on a national scale, but on a local scale again. Again, the guys at Coastal can help you with these. We can download them off the websites. So all the material that you need to make choices on where, what, where and how is now at your fingertips. It's just a click of a finger away. So, how do we choose our location for an investment property? If location A is in the right part of the cycle and it's got lots of schools, lots of shops, lots of motorways, lots of good hospitals, all those sorts of things, the great supply and demand ratio, location B's got 25 and location C's only got 5 of those, which one should we buy? A, depends. All right. I'll make this one a little bit clearer for you. Location C, there's no jobs, there's no schools, there's no hospitals, and there's an oversupply of property. Property A has an undersupply of property, it's in the right cycle, and it's got all the warm fuzzy stuff. Which one should you buy? Does it matter if you don't want to live there? You see? All we're doing is looking at the research and doing a simple comparison to find out where's the right place to go and buy. Now, this is where time comes in, because in 3 years' time, location B has now got 100 ticks. And in 10 years' time, location C's actually got 300 ticks. So when you're looking at the research, you're not looking at the research what's happened in your area 3 months ago, 3 years ago, 10 years ago, what's happening to the area tomorrow, next year, the year after that. Now, the other thing too is timing is directly related to your age. Because if you're 65, there's no point buying an investment property that's going to mature in 10 or 15 years. You've already lost your house and you're living on the street. Where if you're also 25, well, that's a different story. So it's timing in the market and your timing that's very, very important. So, Anybody that's thinking about investing, you can also do it with a self-managed super fund. A lot of people aren't aware of that. Now, what is a self-managed super fund? It is a superannuation policy just like everything else. The rules are the same. How much you contribute to it and when you can get the money out. The difference is if you've got a normal industry fund, your money is invested in the share market. You might have 3 boxes to tick. Low risk, low return, medium risk, medium return, high risk, high return. Simple as that, right? With property in a share market, you're really buying in a property trust. You're not buying the property itself. If you set up a self-managed super fund, now you can choose where your investment goes. You can still do the share box. You can put in cash if you like, but you can also buy direct property. Now, I'm not going to get into the complexity of this because that's a seminar just in itself. The important thing to understand with a self-managed super fund is that you can have 4 members, so you can all pool your resources, so you can all put your supers together. It can be husband and wife, it can be family members, it can be your brother. You can roll your money in, you can roll your money out. Now, one thing that's now important is also leverage and gearing, because banks will lend to a super fund to buy property. So if you've only got 200 grand in your super fund, you ain't buying much of a property for that, but that could be a 30% deposit where you could actually go out and buy a $500,000 or $600,000 investment property. All right? Now, if you sell that property in retirement phase, you're also not going to pay any capital gains tax at all either. So it's a very powerful tool. So if you're thinking of investing, do it in your own name, but also a self-managed super fund policies there as well. So the last 5 minutes is how do we get rid of the problems with investing in property or property in general. If you're going to buy any property, make sure that you see an independent solicitor to review the contracts first. Yes, we can go to a conveyancing firm and get a very, very cheap conveyance done, and that's just the transfer from one person's name to another. But if you're going to buy something, make sure you get a good lawyer to review the contracts, especially if it's off the plan or house and land, and get you the advice to make sure that you know that you're what you're getting into. If it's a normal, simple REIQ contract, you're just buying a normal house, no problems. But again, make sure you get building and pest inspections done and all the right checks that you need to do. If you're going to buy an investment property, you need an accountant to get your tax return, and you also need a quantity surveyor there to get your depreciation right. Property managers, please, 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 pretty please, with sugar on top, don't manage it yourself. Get professional property managers to do it for you. It's very, very important. They will take care of everything for you. They'll collect the rent. They'll source all the right people to make sure that you don't have any stress and your place is run properly. Again, you can download the guide of good steps to good property management there. But again, all the team at Coastal will definitely help you out on that one from there. What are the 3 problems with investment property? It doesn't go up, you don't get tenants, or you get someone that trashes your house. That's easy. Landlord protection insurance will cover you from the bad tenants. Keep the rent low and do your budget. So if the market's telling you the rental is $450 a week, do your cash flow on $410, $420 a week and make sure that you're ahead of the game. I'm not saying don't try and get the $450, but always work to be below the market. And capital growth. Choose your property cycles, buy dwellings that owner-occupiers want to buy in the future, get as much infrastructure growth as you possibly can and keep your supply and demand ratios, and all of that information's at your fingertips. Do that and you'll get a great investment and a great home. Why don't people do it? Scared, feared, they don't think they can do it, but generally it's getting talked out of it by other people. Now this is actually one of my biggest pet hates. If you're thinking of making a move and you go out and talk to your brother, your dad, the guy across the fence, anybody, and say, look, I'm thinking of doing something of investing, da-da-da, and they say no to you, ask them this question. I need some more money, and you're telling me not to buy property, give me an alternative. And if they can't give you an alternative that will help you build your wealth, and they say, I can't give you an alternative, then ask them this next question. Can I have some of your money, please? And if they then say no, stop listening to their advice. Okay? Your path is your path and make sure it's your path. Talk to professionals to get professional advice. Don't just talk to strangers to get opinions, right? An opinion and advice is two different things. So, what's the best property for you? Whether it's your home, whether it's an investment, the best property overall, ladies and gentlemen, is yours. The best strategy is your strategy. So whether it's home, whether it's investment, do the same things. What's my time frame? What's my risk profile? What's my return? What's my cash flows? What's my engagement? And what's my emotional component to all of these sorts of things? So that's really the key here. You have to keep all these things in balance and keep them running all at the same time. Make sure whatever you do is yours and you get the planning right behind it. So the last bit is, who do you choose to make it easy for you in your journey? I bet you're surprised when I was going to say First National, right? Look, the thing with First National, guys, is that we are a large network. We are here tonight for Paul and his team, and he's definitely the local expert in the area. But it's important to appreciate that you may be relocating, you might be selling, you might be moving to Sydney or Melbourne or the GC or Townsville. That doesn't matter. You may have properties that are investment properties in those areas, or you may be investing in those. It doesn't matter. First National are everywhere, and we've got experts everywhere to help you do what you need to do. So we can work with you. So how do you know whether you need our help or not? Simple questions. Does anybody want to know what their home's worth today? Let's get a market valuation on it. That's easily done. Are you thinking of buying and selling your home and you want some help, you want some advice? Maybe you need our help. Does anybody have a home loan here that they want to get a better deal on? Does anybody want to get a home loan, whether it's for a home or investment? Or are you thinking of downloading some information, or do you want some help with investing in property? If you've answered any of those questions, yes, we're here to help you, right? That's what we're all about, is to help you get through the journey. So what's the next step? The idea, ladies and gentlemen, what we do here at First National Assist is we have a session with everybody in the room to help you work out what is your next step, what is your next process, who are the right people to deal with, right? So what we do is we have a one-on-one session with all you guys. We pretty much do that via sort of talking to you guys and having that simple conversation. We've got a very simple questionnaire where we walk through that with you. Who are you? What's your current situation? Do you want to buy and sell your home? Do you want to invest? Do you want lending? And from at that point on, we're going to help you work with the local experts. So if it's the local people here, you're going to work with that. If you need to deal with an investment team, we'll put you with the investment team. If you need some finance, or if you need all of the above, we're going to pull all of the team in there for you. So the idea is, if you've sort of gone out of here tonight and gone, I'd like to buy and sell my home, I'd love some more money, I'd like a better loan deal, I want some more information, come and talk to us, and then we can help you. Generally those sessions are about 45 to an hour long, and what you'll get out of that is more information, more goals, more processes, and you'll have a plan of attack, and you're going to have a team of people behind you getting you where you need to be. Now I know the next question is, gee whiz, how much is it going to cost us? Well, those appointments cost you nothing. When you meet with First National Assist, there are no fees, there are no charges. That is a complimentary service to all you guys because you're all First National clients. It's there for you, so take advantage of it. Now, once you move past that process, it's going to depend. Now, if you're looking at buying a home, well, there's no fees and charges because the guys selling the home, they get paid by the vendor. If you're looking at doing property management, well, then you're going to negotiate a property management fee. If you're looking at selling one of the properties, again, you'll negotiate a fee. But for the first instance, it's important to appreciate when you come out of here and you work with the professionals, get your team and your planning right, there's no cost for that. So there's nothing stopping you walking out here tonight and getting the team behind you and getting a real portfolio and a right strategy going. That's it. Our client managers are there to talk to you. You've met a few of them tonight. Liz is here. Ian's out the front. We've got a few other people, so there's faces to the name. A lot of the times you'll actually meet me as well, so I love to meet as many clients as I possibly can to help you get there. And how we do those meetings is pretty much virtuals. Does everybody have a mobile phone? Has everybody got a computer somewhere tucked away? Great. You can do a virtual through Zooms, Google Chats, or you can even meet us in the office if you like. But 99% of our clients, they just sit at home, they sit in their lounge room, they talk to us on the phone, and they get the stream going. So you don't have to take time out of your work. We can do it in the convenience of your home. Now, everyone's been sent a text. Everybody's been sent an email. It's all sitting in your phone. It's all sitting in the email. Has everybody got their phones on them? Who's got their phone on them? I just want to check that everybody got a text recently. Now, we are going to follow everybody up. I love the watch guy. He's checking his phone. Yeah, I got a text. Everybody got a text in their inbox? Cool. Emails? Perfect. Reply back yes to the text. Reply back to the emails. You'll be able to log into our systems. You'll be able to go through the process. You can book all your appointments, all there. So if you see a text there from Ian saying, "Hi, I'm Ian from First National Assist," just reply back to him now while you've got your phones in the hand, yes. Because then we can follow you up and then we can make an appointment that's convenient for you. Or in our online software, you can make your own appointments. Well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Have an appointment, have a session, use the services that we've got there for you. And just while we've got a few minutes left, can I answer any questions for you? I know there's always one that doesn't want to put their hand up first. And there's never one that wants to put their hand up first, but that's okay. Yes, sir?
First-time home buyer.
Yes.
Can they buy an investment property and then get their first-time home?
Not anymore, no. No. All right. So, look, I suppose the answer is that do you give up the grant? Maybe, yes, that's potentially the case. Do you buy the first home, live in it for a little while, and then move out and turn it into investment property? Yes. Or do you save the deposit, get some help from mum and dad, and buy an investment property that will make you more than your 5% deposit you would have got the grant anyway? So, yes, all sorts of options there. Yeah. Super Savers King. Yes, sir?
Can you depreciate second-hand property?
No, look, now that they've changed it, you can depreciate a portion of your second-hand property now, but you can only claim the building. You can't claim your fixtures and fittings and chattels. So there's only a portion of it. So a second-hand property, yes, it gives you more choices of locations, but your cash flow isn't going to be anywhere near as strong. Other questions? Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, look, if you could take the time to give all the team here over here at Kirstall a round of applause for putting the night on for us. And look, feel free to stay back. I think there is a beer left maybe in the jug over there, possibly, and there's a few sandwiches. So if you do